There's a weird point in the career of a documentary shooter when you suddenly realize that what used to be your hobby has turned into the thing that pays your bills. Figuring out what to charge so that you can maximize your income is something we all have to deal with, whether you want to or not. For anything like me, you probably didn't get into this business for the money, but now that you're starting to take it seriously, it's time to sort out your rates and make sure you get paid what you deserve for your gigs. So in this video, I'm going to get into the most common career progressions and financial brackets that the majority of documentary cinematographers will go through on their way to the top, and what I've found to be the normal rates you can expect to get at each step, all the way from camera assistant to series DP. And at the end, I'll get into what you can do to drive your earning potential even higher through gear rentals, which is something that's been huge for me in terms of building up my kit and making extra cash at the same time. The good news is that even though there's no magic bullet solution to get you where you want to be quickly, documentary filmmaking can be a pretty well-paying job if you price yourself right. So let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back, and if you're new here, my name is Luke Forsyth, and on this channel, I teach the skills I've learned over 10 years working as a documentary filmmaker and photographer. If you're into that kind of thing, make sure to hit the subscribe button because I've got new videos coming out every week. As you can probably see, I am out of the hotel room I've been in for the last few weeks and back home, but my apartment is a disaster of half-packed bags right now, so I didn't have the time to set everything up really nicely. Sorry if the messy workbench triggers your OCD, but it's all I can do for now. All right, one thing I need to say before we start talking about money and how to make it is that if you're just starting out, and by that I mean you've never really shot anything or had a paid job in film before, you should absolutely think about working for free for a bit to gain experience. Obviously, it's always better to get paid if possible, but I've definitely run into more than a few aspiring filmmakers who refuse to work for free because they think that even though they have no experience of any kind, that they're somehow owed a good day rate just for wanting to be a documentary cinematographer. I'm sorry to say that no matter how good your taste in film might be, no one is really looking to pay you much at this stage, so if you can set aside your ego, you'll probably get your foot in the door a lot faster. Working for free can mean creating your own projects that you sell or self-fund, or if we change the word free to intern or volunteer, it can mean giving up your time on other people's productions to get your hands on gear and learn the ropes a bit. But until you have a 1 to 2 minute show reel and enough on-set experience to actually do one of these jobs for real, you're much better off volunteering than buying gear and waiting for the phone to ring, in my opinion anyways. This also isn't a video for people who want to make indie projects on their own and release them online, and that's a really cool pursuit and something that I do as well, but in this video I'm talking more about the professional documentary film industry where people get hired on a day rate to complete big projects, usually in teams. Neither side of this business is better than the other, but I'd say the mainstream industry pays a lot better than the indie world. If you're able to get to a point where you've won a bunch of awards and Netflix and Amazon are knocking on your door for your next original film idea, that obviously changes. But for most of us, especially when you're just starting out, jobs pay the bills. Also, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be talking mainly about my personal experiences working for US or European-based production companies. There aren't any rules about this rates, this is just what I've found to be true during my own career. And obviously prices vary a lot depending on where you live, but most companies will pay similar rates when doing an international shoot. It's a really frustrating reality in the world that not all filmmaking markets pay the same, and for my international friends, it can be a lot harder to lock down similar rates when working locally. But even though that sucks, I get it. If you can get connected with international crews coming to your city or country, the good ones will hopefully pay you the same as they would from someone from their home country. So these rates can still be useful as a guide in those situations. Like, I used to live in Mexico, and while most of the local Mexican production companies paid less on average than the US ones, my Mexican friends who worked on international crews weren't paid less for being Mexican, which is exactly as it should be. So before you write this stuff off as non-applicable to you because you don't live in the US, and I don't either for what it's worth, I'd suggest working on your networking game so you can get those calls when production companies come to your country or city. Even for me living in Canada, the rates here are quite a bit lower than what my US friends can make. So I spent a ton of time and energy making and maintaining contacts in New York and LA so that when good gigs come north of the border, I might be on the short list for crew. I did the same thing when I was living in Mexico, and I paid out of pocket for my own trips to New York at least once a year to do meetings, and without doing that, I doubt I would have gotten the jobs I did. It worked for me, and it can work for you too, no matter what country you're from. All right, so that was a long preamble, I know, but I had to get it out. So assuming you've done the basic groundwork, what's the first step in the ladder of professional documentary cinematography, and what can you expect to earn? Well, But before you can be put on the list of DPs for hire, most of us are going to spend some amount of time working as a camera assistant, normally called an AC for short. Who knows why the initials AC and camera assistant are the opposite? I think it's something to do with different job titles in the British versus US industries, but if anyone knows for sure, post in the comments down below. I have no idea. An AC's job is usually to support the camera team, and unlike on a Hollywood set where one person might do nothing other than pull focus while another one only changes lenses, on docs, the AC basically does whatever is needed in a given moment to make the shooters' lives easier. That means anticipating problems before they happen, like getting a new battery before the old one dies, keeping tabs on the space left on the memory cards, organizing media for easy backups, setting up lights, blacking out windows, putting lav mics on characters, or really anything else that the DP might need help with. A really good AC will see the problems coming before they happen, and if you can do this yourself, you'll find that DPs want you back again and again. I'd say on the low end, an AC should charge about $250 a day, but that you should try and bump that up to $350 as quickly as possible. For me, this is the first rung of professional day rates for cinematographers, and a good AC can be worth every penny. These rates are based on my own personal experiences and they're not written in stone, so if you can get more, ask for more. But over the years, I found $250 to $350 to be about normal for a hardworking AC, and I'd say that's a good starting point when you're negotiating. From here, if you do a good job and the DP likes you, and especially if you work on your networking and stay in touch with the people in the production office, you might get a bump to a hybrid role, something like an AC/cam op. I've heard this role called a swing tech before, or sometimes a field assistant, but I'm not actually sure it has an official job title. It basically means you're still the junior person on the camera team, but you get to shoot and maybe fly drones as well as assisting the DPs, which gives you experience, and if the show allows it, shots for your reel. Just make sure you actually get the shots before the production ends, because trust me, you'll never get them back from the office after everyone goes home. At this stage, you're an experienced AC and you make everyone's life easier. You're still not a full-on shooter, but you might be at the cusp of it, and I'd probably try and get about $450 a day minimum for this. I've been paid up to $650 a day for this role, but those were extremely hard jobs in remote places, and that's on the high end with a lot of shooting time and drone flying expected of me. But if you're doing a lot of shooting on the production, $450 seems like a pretty fair day rate in my opinion. The next step is BCam, which is the second shooter who takes their lead from the DP. To get these jobs consistently, you need to be able to know how to cross shoot effectively, how to read what the A-cam is doing, and how they're shooting a scene so you get complementary shots, like maybe you're shooting the details and wides while the A-cam covers the medium shots or something like that. And you need to know when to get out of the way, like when the A-cam is on something important. A bad B-cam will constantly pop into the frame because they don't know what the A-cam is seeing, or their shots will be way different than the A-cam, making it really hard to cut things in post. So if you're going after jobs like this, you should probably have a decent amount of shooting and drone flying experience beforehand. You should also know how to use a cinema camera really well, so when the DP frantically asks you to grab a camera and start filming the third angle or get the drone up super fast, you know exactly what they're talking about and you can make it happen quickly. Your framing and composition should be solid as well, so that the DP knows that when they tell you to cover something, they don't have to review the footage because they're confident that you can make it look good without being micromanaged. Speaking from personal experience, there's nothing scarier as a DP than not trusting your BCam to nail their shots, or looking through the dailies at the end of a shoot and realizing that all their compositions were off. There's really no way to fast track this process, and developing your eye takes time. For me, stills photography was really good training for this, but the real secret is just time and a crazy amount of practice. I'd say for a BCam spot, you should charge around $550 a day, with $650 being a pretty solid rate. As a BCam thinking about leveling up to DP, you should be trying to suck up as much knowledge about what the DP is doing, so that when you finally get the bump up, you're not overwhelmed. I mean, let's be honest, you will be overwhelmed, but at least you'll be able to stay calm and get through it. Once you've proven yourself a few times as a solid BCam, eventually someone will take a chance on you as a lead DP. This will probably happen on smaller productions first, but if you do a good job, your name will be passed around more and more. The world of doc production really is pretty small at the higher levels, and everyone wants to work with their friends. So do a good job, be a nice person, and you will get hired. And like I said a second ago, you should have your photography, framing, and scene coverage technique pretty dialed in before you start taking lead DP jobs, so don't be mad if it isn't happening as quickly as you might want. You definitely don't want to take a DP job before you're ready and blow it because you don't have the necessary base skills. Fake it till you make it is good advice most of the time, but not at the professional level where the stakes of messing up are higher. That's just gonna hurt your reputation and make you feel bad. As a baseline for a DP, I would try to charge a minimum of $650 a day if you're really new, but try and get it up to $750 after a few successful jobs. Once you've proven that you can do it, I'd suggest that $850 to $1,000 is a really solid rate for a seasoned doc DP, with most production companies not wanting to pay much more than that unless you've got some serious awards or credits under your name. I don't know that many documentary DPs regularly making more than $1,000 a day just on their day rate, though if you win an Oscar or an Emmy, this might be more realistic. This is where things sort of cap out on a day rate in the documentary world, and if you really want to earn more than that, you probably need to branch into the world of commercials. You might get less, you might get even more, but those rates have been pretty normal, at least in my experience. Now, making $850 a day is nothing to complain about in my opinion, especially considering how many people out there work jobs they hate for minimum wage just to get by. But if you're super business minded, there is something else DPs can do to bring in more cash on top of their rates, and that's by renting gear. This can be a very polarizing subject, and especially in the commercial and narrative worlds, many people will say that DPs don't ever need to own a camera. Since a lot of those productions shoot on Aries or Red cameras that are really expensive, it probably does make sense for most people just to rent on the day rather than mortgage their house for a set of lenses. But the doc world is a little bit different, and there are many times when having your own gear is an advantage or even expected, especially when you're starting out. Later on, when a big crew flies into your city with 50 Pelican cases, they might want to shoot on their stuff, but at the start, having all the necessary gear can pretty much be a condition of getting the job. For me, especially when I was living in Cambodia and Mexico, most of the job offers I got required me to have the basic gear, and while that can be an expensive investment, the good news is that you can usually charge for it. Before you buy anything though, I'd say to first figure out what gear the production companies who hire you are using, and then get as many of those things as you can, slowly over time. I went with Sony cameras because I noticed most production companies I was working on were shooting FS7s or F55s, so I knew that if I got one of those, the production managers would be happy to pay for it. And you can charge more for just the camera. Lenses, tripods, drones, easy rigs, whatever, lights, you can charge for them all if the production wants to use them. One note of caution though is that buying gear just to rent can be a slippery slope because you can easily spend way too much money, so make sure you're actually able to rent this stuff before you overinvest. But if you do it right, it's possible that your gear can actually make more money than you. A quick hack for setting your prices is to just do a quick check of what local rental houses charge, then charge 10 to 15% less. When a company asks you for your rates, send them the link to the rental house, tell them you're charging 15% less, and it should be a no-brainer for them. Here where I live in Vancouver, an FX9 rents for just under $400 a day with discounts for longer rentals, and that doesn't include batteries, lenses, or anything other than the camera body. That adds up super fast when you factor in all the other accessories you'll be adding, even if you charge 20% less. Be honest with yourself though about the volume of work you have. If you're renting stuff out regularly, this can easily double your income. If no one is renting this stuff from you though, you can just as easily dig yourself into a deep financial hole buying things that don't really earn you anything back. For me, getting into rentals only really makes sense when you're regularly being asked to work as a BCam or a DP, as these are the kind of jobs where they want high-end gear. So if you're still ACing most of the time, spending 25 grand on camera gear probably isn't the best business plan. Just worry about building your reel and practicing as much as possible, and the big gear will come eventually. Instead, I'd probably start out buying used older model cameras and never ever buy gear on credit, no matter how tempting it might seem. It's all about balance and timing here, but if you do it right, renting your gear can make a big financial difference. Now, if these prices seem really high, it's because we're all freelancers and sometimes we have to deal with big droughts between jobs. We're paid for the lack of security and stability, and considering that I need to buy my own insurance, gear, and save for a pension-free retirement, you need to charge a lot. Now, obviously, if I worked at these prices 5 days a week for 50 weeks of the year, I'd be doing pretty well for myself.
You're goddamn right.
But the reality is that I might go weeks or months or many months without work during a dry spell, and the high day rates reflect that uncertainty. Let me know in the comments what you personally charge for each of these jobs, and let's compare. The last thing I'll say here is that if there's something you really want to work on but they're not meeting your day rates, do it anyways. There's more ways to be paid in this life than cash, so don't be so stubborn and refuse to drop your prices even if the project seems amazing. I do it all the time, and I've been doing this for over a decade. All right, that's it. Hope this video helped and that it gave you some ideas for how to price yourself in the world of documentary cinematography. If you like that one, think about subscribing so I can keep bringing out videos like this every week. And if you did like that one, maybe check out this other video I made on 5 times new filmmakers should think about working for free. See ya.